Hi there, and welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about about a series that that's been on my TBR for quite a while. This is actually the second book in that series. I read and thoroughly enjoyed the first, and the series that I'm talking about is the Daevabad trilogy by Shannon Chakraborty. The novel in particular, Kingdom of Copper. So I had high expectations going into this series. Shannon Chakraborty didn't disappoint. She really blew me out of the water with City of Brass. So I had even higher expectations coming into Kingdom of Copper. At the same time, I was a bit. I was trying to temper those expectations because middle book syndrome is a thing in fantasy, especially in these big meaty novels like what she's written. And I'm actually surprised to see that she handles it really deftly. What we get with Kingdom of Copper was like a intriguing, slow burn political build up. Fairly heavy political build up. And when I say politics, more in terms of just the family drama intrigue kind of thing. And not just within the family. There are forces at work that are going to make things very interesting, to say the least. But yeah, so City of Brass ended with some pretty interesting things happening, and this book picks up a few years after that. We directly see the consequences of what's happened at the end of that book, and we meet our characters in some very different places. Not just in different places, but having grown accustomed to the changes that their lives have taken following the events of City of Brass. And that was a pretty great choice to me. Usually with with these books, things tend to go pick up immediately after. Doing a little time skip and meeting the characters that we're familiar with in an entirely new place, clearly in new situations, and having that part where we kind of have to rediscover them, learn who they are all over again, kind of worked for this novel. But yeah, it was a great choice. I liked how that particular aspect played out, at least. One of my favorite things in this novel was just the way the fantastical element, the magic, and the entire tapestry of like the mythology, and the fantastical elements in general in this series. The way that they expand and grow, and we learn so much more about this very fascinating world, this very fascinating culture, and the multifaceted nature of it. Not just the multifaceted nature of it, but the consequences of those facets having to coexist. This is a novel where right from the get go, it's not shy about dealing with topics such as occupation, invasion, abuse of power, tyranny, racism, subjugation, these kind of things. And this is the book that just builds on all of that. We get like it's a book based on a fantastical version of the Middle East. So many of the things that you're fairly familiar with, that we see year after year in the news, they do play out in this book in a kind of a microcosm in their own ways. And it was interesting to see Shannon Chakraborty's the way in which she decided to represent these situations as someone who's clearly very interested in this place and these events. It worked. It really drove the story along. As much as this, like I said, this book was a relatively slow burn build up, it also kept things interesting and fascinating in a whole new way. It kept things going. It kept things going without it feeling like a drag. Because there was just so much fascinating things going on to keep you thinking and keep you going and keep you hooked. Needless to say, a book that deals with these kind of topics, you can kind of guess where this is all building up to, and it does happen towards the end of the book. We do see yet another change, in what's just a history of changes in Daevabad. Is it good? Is it bad? That's the fascinating part. That's where it gets truly fascinating, because the entire situation is represented in a way that there's no good side, there's no positives to this. It's just more of the same. It's not so much two sides of the same coin as it is the same side of the same coin just being flipped and appearing over and over and over, regardless of who's at the top. It was great. Like I said, it's a novel with so much going on, a lot to think about, a lot to enjoy. That by the end, it just worked for me. I don't think I'm gonna talk too much more about this, because I could really get more into it, and I get the feeling I'm just gonna become very repetitive about this aspect of it, which is, as you can tell, is very clearly my favorite aspect of this book. But ultimately, what this entire book was a reintroduction of the characters after the consequences of the first book. It was a massive build up towards the second. It was both a massive build up towards the finale, and a book that played out the consequences of the first one, paid off the threads that started in the first one. We got your standard expansion. All in all, pretty much everything you would expect from a middle book in a fantasy trilogy. But really well done in a very fascinating world. Yeah, and I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Needless to say that I'm more than a little excited to see how this all ends in the finale of this trilogy. Yeah, that's it. If you've made it this far, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.